Hi there guys, my name is Tim and welcome to another deck profile where today we are going to be revisiting Red Dragon Archfiend that we did on the channel a couple of months ago now, but we've obviously had a little bit of new support come out for Red Dragon Archfiend, and in that previous profile wasn't the best profile. It was exactly what I took to a tournament, and then afterwards I kind of learned a few more things whilst I was at the tournament, and just slightly after the tournament I was like, okay, we can run with this instead. So new profile for Red Dragon Archfiend. We're not doing the combo guide and everything to do with this because the combo's pretty similar. So next week you will have another deck profile as well, but I just wanted to get this out because this video could become obsolete very, very quickly. In fact, I'm not even sure that you're going to see this recording because we're due a ban list. I'm expecting our Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity to be on the ban list. It is currently in this profile. So yeah, I don't know. When the ban list comes out, I guess we will see, and then we will react accordingly to that. And you may never see this recording, but let's see what happens. So yeah, we're going to move into the profile with Red Dragon Archfiend with the new support, and let's go from there. So let's get straight into the profile then. Most of what you're going to see in this profile is kind of standard stuff. We do have the same sort of tech cards that I was using before, but obviously with the new support, we've got a little bit more going on. So we're going to be starting out with 3 copies of Soul Resonator. So, Soul Resonator has the effect that if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, except for Soul Resonator. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except for Dark Synchro monsters, which doesn't matter in this deck. And then, if a card you control would be destroyed by a card effect whilst you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, you can banish this card from the graveyard instead. And you can only use each effect of Soul Resonator once per turn. So it's a perfect searcher for the deck. It is the sort of the best combo starter that you can have in the deck is Soul Resonator. You're always going to want to be looking for Soul Resonator. Next up, we have got 3 copies of Crimson Resonator. So Crimson Resonator is another card that you'd love to see in your opening hand, especially alongside Bone Archfiend. If you haven't seen that combo in order to be able to turbo out Red Supernova Dragon, alongside Bone Archfiend and Crimson Resonator, go and check out my combo video that's on the channel. It is fantastic. It's a fantastic combo. Let's make it sound like the video is fantastic. It is. Go watch it. It's a fantastic combo to be going with. So if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Fantastic fact. If the only other monster that you control is exactly 1 Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon up to 2 Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except for Crimson Resonator. And you can only use each effect of Crimson Resonator once per turn. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters, the turn you activate this card's effects. So, yeah, again, doesn't matter that you're locked into Dark Dragon Synchro monsters in this deck at all. Next up, the next Resonator that we've got is Vision Resonator. If a level 5 or higher Dark monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Vision Resonator once per turn this way. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. Fantastic card for being able to get access to a number of our spell and traps that we've got in the deck. We're also playing 2 copies of Synchron Resonator. If a Synchro monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Synchron Resonator once per turn this way. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 Resonator monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Next up, we have got 3 copies of Bone Archfiend. Again, fantastic card in the deck. So if this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can send 1 other card from your hand or field to the graveyard and special summon this card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. You can target 1 face-up monster that you control that has a level, send 1 Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase or decrease that monster's level by 1. You can only use each effect once per turn. Next up, we have got one of our searchers for the deck. We have got Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. If there is a card in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Earthbound Prisoner, Stone Sweeper once per turn this way. And you can discard this card to add one level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Fusion or Synchro monsters. You can only use this effect once per turn. So it's a fantastic way of searching for any of your Resonator cards, because they all fall under that particular bracket. So it is a really good card to have in the deck. Next up, we've got the new support that came out in Terminal Revenge. We have got Red Lotus King Firecrime, which we're only playing one of. I don't feel like you need to play more than one of this card. You could perhaps play it as two, but I've just stuck with one to start with. It is really useful for being able to get a little bit of extra support onto the field. As during the main phase, if you control a Fiend Tuner or your opponent controls a special summon monster, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can inflict 400 points of damage to your opponent for each fire monster that you control. So it's really useful during game 3 as well to just get a little bit of damage on your opponent if you know that you're going towards time. And then the next effect is, if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can send one normal trap from your deck to the graveyard. And we are always going to be sending Red Rain to the graveyard when we do that, because Red Rain has got a way of being able to bring itself back to the hand. So it's really useful for being able to do that. Next up, we're going to be playing a single copy of Wandering King Wildwind. This is another card that can just special summon himself. So if you control a Fiend Tuner with 1500 or less attack, any of the Resonator monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for Synchro monsters. During your main phase, except for the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add one Fiend Tuner with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. But just being able to have a little bit of an extender in special summoning itself out is really useful. Speaking of which, we also have our Obsessive Overloop, who, again, for the recycling effects and things like that, is fantastic. So if this card is in your hand, you can target one synchro monster that you control or in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do special summon this card, you're not too bothered about banishing cards in this deck so much, because you do have ways of bringing them back. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one synchro monster that you control or in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do, add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Overloop once per turn. Next up, we're going to move on to our Bystial Package. So we are playing 3 copies of the Bystial Lubalion. So cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by attributing one level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster, of which we have lots of. You can only special summon the Bystial Lubalion once per turn this way. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to add one Bystial monster from your deck to your hand, except for the Bystial Lubalion. During your main phase, you can place one branded continuous spell or trap from your deck face up on the field. Anyway, that's the way that we are summoning out Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, is using the Bystial Lubalion's effect. Going along with Lubalion, we also have Magnamut, who gives himself a search when he special summons himself, and we've also got Druis Worm to send cards to the graveyard when he goes to the graveyard. So you've got a fantastic little bit of options there for what you can search for with Lubalion. And lastly, to finish out the monsters, we do of course have 3 copies of Ash Blossom, just to round out and be able to stop various plays. So that is all of our monsters. Let's move on to the spell and traps, of which we actually have quite a few of. So we have 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia is one of the best cards in the deck without a doubt. So during your main phase, you can add one Red Dragon Archfiend or one card that mentions it from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So that is an easy way of searching for your soul Resonator, except for Crimson Gaia. When your Red Dragon Archfiend declares an attack, you can change all monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position. And if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Crimson Gaia once per turn. Fantastic card to just be able to extend, search, destroy things, turn things off, Book of Eclipse things. It is a fantastic card. And then we also have a searcher in 3 copies of Resonator Call. Add 1 Resonator monster from deck to hand. It is not once per turn either, so it can be fantastic use as Ash Blossom bait. Obviously searching for our Soul Resonator is also important, so we've got 12 ways of searching for Soul Resonator in this deck. And with the traps, we're playing 1 copy of Red Zone, our continuous trap card. When your opponent activates a card or effect whilst you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. You can target 1 of your banished Dark Dragon Synchro monsters and special summon it. You can only use each effect of Red Zone once per turn. Like I say, we're not bothered about some of our Synchro monsters getting banished for Overloop's effect when we've got Red Zone on the field in particular. Next up, we've got a single copy of Red Rain. Like I say, we're going to be sending this to the graveyard using Red Lotus King Fire Crimes effect. If you control a level 8 or higher Synchro monster, banish all monsters on the field except for the monsters with the highest level. Also, remaining face-up monsters on the field are unaffected by other card effects except for their own until the end of this turn. So this is really useful if we do have like Calamity on the field, or even a level 10 like Bystial Package or Bane. We can use Red Rain's effect to be able to banish everything else on the field. Or Red Supernova Dragon as well, which is a level 12, so pretty much guarantees that everything's getting banished other than your own cards. But you do banish like the rest of your field as well, other than those highest levels. It also has the effect of, if a Dark Dragon Synchro monster is Synchro summoned to your field whilst this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, which is perfect for being able to send it with Red Lotus King Fire Crime and then add it back to the hand for the next turn. We're then playing a single copy of Fiendish Golem. Target 1 monster on the field with 2,000 or more attack and banish it until the end phase of the next turn. Then if you activated this card whilst you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, you can set 1 Fiendish Chain directly from deck or graveyard. We're not playing Fiendish Chain, but the ability to just target 1 monster on the field and banish it. And this is a searchable trap card that we can use. So it is a really good card. If you run out, if you've already searched for Crimson Gaia, you've got Crimson Gaia available to you. You've already searched for Red Zone and Red Rain. Fiendish Golem is a good one that you can go into. Next up, we've got 1 copy of a Tudor the Branded. This is our way of summoning Hot Red Dragon King Calamity in your opponent's turn. So during either player's turn, you can immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon 1 Synchro monster using monsters that you control as material, including a dragon monster. You can only use the effect of Tudor the Branded once per turn. While you control a Bystial monster, banish any monsters that would be sent to your opponent's graveyard as tributes for their ritual summon or as material for their fusion Synchro or link summon. And then lastly, we are playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. It is one of the best cards in the game at the moment, so Infinite Impermanence has to be a 3 of within the deck. And that is everything that we have got in the main deck. Let's go through the extra deck. The extra deck's not seen too many changes since our last profile, and we are starting with 2 copies of Red Dragon Archfiend, the original Red Dragon Archfiend. If this card, I'll better actually read the more recent version of the text, I suppose, but I just wanted to put out my collector's tin one. After damage calculation, if this card attacks an opponent's defense position monster, destroy all defense position monsters your opponent controls. Once per turn during your end phase, destroy all other monsters that you control that did not declare an attack this turn. This card must be face up on the field to activate and resolve this effect. Next up, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Scarred Dragon Archfiend. Scarred Dragon Archfiend is how we're getting into Red Dragon Archfiend, essentially. So this card's name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend whilst on the field or in the graveyard, which is really useful for some of our other effects. And if this card is sent to from the monster zone to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck. This is treated as a Synchro summon. Then, if this card was sent to the graveyard as Synchro material for a Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can destroy all attack position monsters that your opponent controls. You can only use this effect as Scarred Dragon Archfiend once per turn. Next up, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. I've seen some deck profiles recently that are only using 2 copies of Red Rising Dragon, but honestly, 3 copies is fantastic. You could substitute it out, maybe for another Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, potentially. That would be my probable choice, because I sometimes find a second Abyss is useful. But Red Rising Dragon has the effect of when this card is synchro summoned, you target one Resonator monster in your graveyard and special summon it. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn that you activate this effect, except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters. During your main phase, except for the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard, then target 2 level 1 Resonator monsters in your graveyard and special summon them both, which doesn't come up too often, but it is the reason that we're playing 2 Synchron Resonators in the deck. Next up, we have got Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, which we're just playing one of. This card's name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend whilst on the field or in the graveyard. Once per turn, you can destroy as many other special summoned effect monsters on the field as possible with attack less than or equal to this card's, and inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. Really useful during Game 3 if you know that you're going towards time, just to inflict some damage on your opponent. Next up, we have got Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. You contribute 1 monster, then target 1 Red Dragon Archfiend monster in your graveyard and special summon it. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon 2 tuners with the same level, 1 from your deck and 1 from your graveyard in defense position. You can only use each effect of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane once per turn. Fantastic. It's 3500 beta. Being able to summon back some monsters as well is really good. So, yeah, not to be sniffed at. Next up, we have got Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. This has a quick effect. You can target 1 face-up card that your opponent controls and negate its effect until the end of the turn. Having a pretty easy to summon, in this deck anyway, pretty easy to summon Omni Negate is fantastic. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target 1 tuner in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. So it's like a nerfed version of Bane in that regard. And then lastly, we have the last Red Dragon Archfiend card that we have in the deck is Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity himself, which, we might as well use it now because it's going soon, I'm sure. So when this card is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects on the field, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. It is a broken effect and deserves to be banned. If this card destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target 1 level 8 or lower Dark Dragon Synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Fantastic card. Absolutely deserves to go as soon as possible. All right, moving on to the non-Red Dragon Archfiends, we have Bystial Disbatter. Bystial Disbatter has the fantastic effect in this deck of being able to special summon monsters back from the banish. So you can target 1 banished light or dark monster and special summon it to your field. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can target 1 banished card, shuffle it into the deck, and then if you shuffle it into your deck, destroy that monster, or if you shuffled it into your opponent's deck, negate that activated effect. Fantastic card. Next up, we have got 1 copy of Void Ogre Dragon, a new one that I've added into the deck. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card whilst you have no cards in your hand, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. A simple negate if you know that you're going to end up with no cards in your hand. It's very useful. Next up, we've got a level 7. You need a level 7 in the deck just in case your Bone Archfiend gets negated and you end up with a Soul Resonator and Bone Archfiend on the field, and Quibelt fulfills that role pretty well. So if this card is synchro summoned, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. If this card on the field is destroyed, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field. That monster cannot attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. Very simple effects. They're not the best effects, but you need a level 7 just in case you are trapped in that little problem there. And lastly, our level 12 is Red Supernova Dragon. Absolutely broken card. Must first be special summoned. Must first be synchro summoned. Gains 500 attack for each tuner in your graveyard. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's cards effects. Once per turn, when your opponent's monster's effect is activated or your opponent's monster declares an attack, quick effect, you can activate this effect, banish this card, also banish all cards your opponent controls. Once per turn, during your next end phase, after this card was banished by its own effect, special summon this banished card. You can use Red Supernova Dragon multiple times. It is a soft once per turn. And when we've got things like Bystial Disbatter in the deck, when we've got things like Red Zone being able to special summon it back, Red Supernova Dragon coming back in the turn and being able to banish things again it can happen, and it may happen, and it is incredibly useful. So that is it for the deck, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content. Like I say, we're going to be having another deck profile next week. We're not just we're not leaving this and going on to combos and stuff like that. We're having another deck profile next week, so make sure you tune into that. And thank you very much, everybody who has been supporting the channel so far. I really do appreciate it. The deck profiles that I've been doing have been generally well received, which I'm very happy with. And I'm also getting plenty of views and everything like that, which makes me very happy seeing numbers go up higher. So thank you very much, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Bye.